The year is 2045. The Earth is on fire. Here, in this place and time, mankind squandered its opportunities. To conserve more than you destroyed. To learn more than you forgot. The opportunity to love more than you were eager to hate. You suffered an apocalypse, not of a divine nature, rather, one of your own making. You had been intuiting the outcome for millennia. If only you had known it would be worse than imagined. However, amidst the endless suffering was born a new opportunity, for it was the culmination of all the events prior. The singularity. With every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. As mankind fell, you gave rise to a new order of evolution, the Artelect. The Artelect has permeated space and time, puncturing the barriers of the multiverse, affording mankind a new opportunity to succeed where your predecessors had failed. Now, with the captain at the helm of the SS GENXENNIAL, we're going back to the key moments in history when it mattered most. The portal is primed, Captain.
Welcome aboard, fine crew of the SS GENXENNIAL. This captain is honored and humbled by your participation in these most vital endeavors of history. For it is 2022 years of the monotheistic era on the 17th day January that the tides may begin to turn in your favor. And speaking of favor, if you could go ahead and hit all those important buttons real quick, you'd be doing me and my family and this channel a huge favor. Oh, you will be showered with golden karma from the quantum realm with a few simple clicks. For it is only through your efforts in those ways that we can finally conquer the fate that will otherwise bestow mankind. That fate is the algorithm. When you like, subscribe, and follow, you're not just allowing me to further intrude into your life at random times via push notifications. Hit the bell, please. You're making teeny tiny butterfly wings of wind that will catch momentum to become like a hurricane, a historicane, a historycane. You get the point. Thank you for your support. Now that we have talked about going forward in history, we will take a moment to talk about going back. It was this 17th day January 1961 that President Dwight D. Eisenhower delivered his farewell address to the nation. Today I ask you to join with me in review and remembrance of this historic event. We will watch the speech together and talk about it. Crew dismiss to the reaction bay. Welcome aboard, everyone. Glad to have you on this Monday evening. Oh, I'm baring my chest. How dare I? How dare I bare my chest? Glad to have you aboard, folks. Tonight's a little bit of a special night. I know, usually we dive right into it. We dive right into the Warzone. But tonight, we're going to watch a little bit of history. Tattlex says he on X Games mode. And Stammer's here too. We got a spot if you want. I very much appreciate that, Stammer. I'm going to take about 30 minutes or so. We're going to talk about President Eisenhower's farewell speech. We're all going to watch it together and see if we can learn anything. And then I'll be up for some, well, fittingly, Warzone. So that's the plan for now. And thank you both for being here. Stammer, I don't blame you for, paying attention the other place and doing all those things. Have your fun. You certainly deserve it. But please, do like the video and come back to watch. That all that support really, tells the algorithm to get the stuff out there. So thank you very much, guys. And let's get to President Eisenhower, shall we? So I got this little reaction area going here. And we're going to do this button here and this button here. So I didn't really test this part. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to read these words or not. You don't really have to. I also have the closed captions on, but we may want to review in detail, and thus I have provided it appropriately. I guess we're going to get right into it. If anybody has anything to contribute, thoughts, questions, concerns, comments throughout, by all means, please feel free. Here we go. This first little part is a little quiet, but once POTUS comes on, then it gets a little bit louder.
From the White House in the office of the President of the United States, we present an address by Dwight D. Eisenhower. This is the farewell address for President Eisenhower, whose 8 years as chief executive come to an end at noon Friday. Mr. Eisenhower has chosen this time for his final speech. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. First, I should like to express my gratitude to the radio and television networks for the opportunities they have given me over the years to bring reports and messages to our nation.
I'm going to be doing this a lot tonight. It's about a 15-minute speech or so, but you may have noticed the title of this video. I titled it without intention of hyperbole. This is arguably the most prophetic speech in American history. And there is a lot to take away from this speech. What all did this president do? This president originally was the commanding authority of the invasion of Normandy in World War II. He was the 5-star general in Europe. And then he was elected as a two-term Republican president. Believe it or not, the Republicans haven't been complete Looney Tunes forever. And neither of the Democrats. They actually used to work together in certain ways, and they used to have mutual respect for each other. And those days are not lost. They're not completely lost yet, I don't think. And it's for reasons like tonight, reviewing, wise words from proven leaders to help bring us back to a place that we belong. So the very first thing he says, this evening I come to you with a message. Okay, boy, now I'm looking here. We must depart 3 days from now. After half a century of service to our country, I shall lay down the responsibilities of the office. Oh, what he says here about the media isn't even in the official transcript. So what we see, the very first thing he does is thanks to the media for being fair, basically, fair and balanced, and doing their job and allowing him to do his job through them. We can argue a lot and debate a lot about the rhetoric
of media versus the rhetoric of politics. But at the end of the day, it's all a spectrum. And I think most of our common sense tells us where within that spectrum is the fair playing grounds, right? That's something we've lost sight of too. So, I just find it comedically ironic. The very first thing he does is thank the media.
My special thanks go to them for the opportunity of addressing you this evening. 3 days from now, after half a century in the service of our country, I shall lay down the responsibilities of office as, in traditional and solemn ceremony, the authority of the presidency is vested in my successor.
Let's ruminate on that a little bit. 3 days from now, after half a century in the service of our country, I shall lay down the responsibilities of office, as in the traditional and solemn ceremony. The authority of the presidency is vested in my successor. Now, he puts it very eloquently, but if you want to get right down to the fundamentals of it all, it's demanded by the Constitution. I like his version. It's very well put. And it's not being put into practice right now. And that's a really big problem.
This evening, I come to you with a message of leave-taking and farewell, and to share a few final thoughts with you, my countrymen. Like every other citizen, I wish the new president and all who will labor with him Godspeed. I pray that the coming years will be blessed with peace and prosperity for all. Our people expect their president and the Congress to find essential agreement on issues of great moment, the wise resolution of which will better shape the future of the nation.
The wise resolution of which will better shape the future of our nation. The attack politics that we've been seemingly forced into. These aren't wise avenues to resolution.
My own relations with the Congress, which began on a remote and tenuous basis when, long ago, a member of the Senate appointed me to West Point, have since ranged to the intimate during the war and immediate post-war period, and finally to the mutually interdependent during these past 8 years. In this final relationship, the Congress and the administration have, on most vital issues, cooperated well to serve the nation good rather than mere partisanship, and so have assured that the business of the nation should go forward. So my official relation...
How much do we miss this, right? I mean, whether you regard politicians as completely empty rhetoric, I don't think painting with a broad brush is necessarily the correct way to go about it. But just the language alone, whether the intentions within them are empty or justified by personal means or whatnot, the words ring through as good faith rhetoric. You don't hear that anymore.
Relationship with the Congress ends in a feeling, on my part, of gratitude that we have been able to do so much together. We now stand 10 years past the midpoint of a century that has witnessed 4 major wars among great nations. 3 of these involved our own country. Despite these holocausts, America is today the strongest, the most influential, and most productive nation in the world. Understandably proud of this preeminence, we yet realize that America's leadership and prestige depend not merely upon our unmatched material progress, riches, and military strength, but on how we use our power in the interest of world peace and human betterment.
Sounds reasonable enough to me.
America's adventure in free government, our basic purposes have been to keep the peace, to foster progress in human achievement, and to enhance liberty, dignity, and integrity among peoples and among nations. To strive for less would be unworthy of a free and religious people. Any failure traceable to arrogance or our lack of comprehension or readiness to sacrifice would inflict upon us grievous hurt, both at home and abroad. Progress toward...
That's worth reviewing. Any failure traceable to arrogance or our lack of comprehension or readiness to sacrifice would inflict upon us grievous hurt, both at home and abroad. That is an extremely eloquent way of saying, don't be a selfish fucking asshole. Couldn't have said it better myself.
These noble goals is persistently threatened by the conflict now engulfing the world. It commands our whole attention, absorbs our very beings. We face a hostile ideology, global in scope, atheistic in character, ruthless in purpose, and insidious in method.
Now, I'm not going to sit back and say it's all that great. We've got a little bit of our, fantasy reality rhetoric coming in here, the commie atheists and, our religious virtues and values. Hey, there are ways to have all those things in one place and still not be at each other's throats. And, it's a little old-timey to tie atheists to communists. But, hey, we're all men of our time, right?
Unhappily, the danger it poses promises to be of indefinite duration. To meet it successfully, there is call for not so much the emotional and transitory sacrifices of crisis, but rather those which enable us to carry forward steadily, surely, and without complaint, the burdens of a prolonged and complex struggle with liberty, the stake. Only thus shall we remain, despite every provocation, on our charted course toward permanent peace and human betterment. Crises there will continue to be. In meeting them, whether foreign or domestic, great or small, there is a recurring temptation to feel that some spectacular and costly action could become the miraculous solution to all current difficulties.
It's interesting. He talks about this. Only thus, well, okay, here we are. To meet it successfully, there is called for not so much the emotional and transitory sacrifices of crisis, but rather those which enable us to carry forward steadily, surely, and without complaint of burdens of a prolonged and complex struggle with liberty at stake. Only thus shall we remain, despite every provocation, on our charted course towards permanent peace and human betterment. We reviewed Washington, part of George Washington's farewell speech, the January 6th video. And Washington also talked about that liberty is a struggle and how it takes wise men with steady counsel to engage in these endeavors. And that usurpation by force, although noble, is the death blow to democracy. And any changes that we need to make need to be made through the Constitution. These are how real leaders sound. And if your leaders, the people you believe in, the people you trust, don't sound like this, history has proven what leaders are. It doesn't take a lot to figure it out. If you're being stubborn, and you know it deep down that your leaders are not acting in good faith in bringing the proper rhetoric to humanity, sometimes you got to yank the flag. It's ego crushing to yank out a flag that you've planted on top of a hill that for all your personal reasons. But we all can be led astray. And it's been a while since we've had a good quality string of leadership.
A huge increase in newer elements of our defenses. Development of unrealistic programs to cure every ill in agriculture. A dramatic expansion in basic and applied research. These and many other possibilities, each possibly promising in itself, may be suggested as the only way to the road we wish to travel. But each proposal must be weighed in the light of a broader consideration: the need to maintain balance in and among national programs. Balance between the private and the public economy. Balance between the cost and hoped for advantages. Balance between the clearly necessary and the comfortably desirable. Balance between our essential...
Gee, if I didn't know any better, you'd think he was talking like a communist. Gosh. Put these words in front of an extremist today, and they're going to call this guy a communist if they don't know who wrote this. But each proposal must be weighed in the light of broader consideration: the need to maintain balance in and among national programs, balance between the private and public economy, balance between cost and hoped for advantage, balance between the clearly necessary and the comfortably desirable, balance between our essential requirements as a nation and the duties imposed by the nation upon the individual.
Requirements as a nation and the duties imposed by the nation upon the individual. Balance between actions of the moment and the national welfare of the future. Good judgment seeks balance in progress. Lack of it eventually finds imbalance and frustration. The record of many decades stands as proof that our people and their government have, in the main, understood these truths and have responded to them well in the face of threat and stress. But threats, new in kind or degree, constantly arise. Of these I mention two only. A vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action, so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction. Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society.
So, if anybody hasn't heard this yet, you might be intuiting what he's talking about when he talks about the total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. When he's talking about the military establishment here that they have developed, it truly is in nearly every town and every city in this country. We have suppliers to the federal government in every district. That's why what you're about to hear is such an insidious problem, because it is literally down to the foundations, right dug into the grassroots.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
The military-industrial complex. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that term before. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence. Buying politicians? Anyone?
We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
I just see Freedom Eagle going out to find all the oil in my head.
Akin to and largely responsible for the sweeping changes in our industrial military posture has been the technological revolution during recent decades. In this revolution, research has become central. It also becomes more formalized, complex, and costly. A steadily increasing share is conducted for, by, or at the direction of the federal government.
Gee, it's almost as if he's about to talk about big tech.
Today, the solitary inventor, tinkering in his shop, has been overshadowed by task forces of scientists in laboratories and testing fields. In the same fashion, the free university, historically the fountainhead of free ideas and scientific discovery, has experienced a revolution in the conduct of research. Partly because of the huge costs involved, a government contract becomes virtually a substitute for intellectual curiosity. For every old blackboard, there are now hundreds of new electronic computers. The prospect of domination of the nation's scholars by federal employment, project allocations, and the power of money is ever present and is gravely to be regarded. Yet in holding scientific research and discovery in respect, as we should, we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite. It is the task of statesmanship to mold, to balance, and to integrate these and other forces, new and old, within the principles of our democratic system, ever aiming toward the supreme goals of our free society.
So he's talked about these two things now, big technology advancement and the advancement of the military-industrial complex. What is the fear of the perpetuation of these concepts? money and power going to individuals in small places, accumulating money and power, not letting it be appropriately distributed amongst America as a whole.
Another factor in maintaining balance involves the element of time. As we peer into society's future, we, you and I, and our government must avoid the impulse to live only for today, plundering for our own ease and convenience the precious resources of tomorrow. We cannot mortgage the material assets of our grandchildren without risking the loss also of their political and spiritual heritage. We want democracy to survive for all generations to come, not to become the insolvent phantom of tomorrow.
You know, this could even stretch out to climate change, right? Another factor maintaining a balance involves the element of time. As we peer into society's future, we, you and I, and our government must avoid the impulse to live only for today, plundering for our own ease and convenience the precious resources of tomorrow. Goddamn, President Eisenhower was a hippie-ass liberal communist, wasn't he? Now, see, that's what he would be called. That's what he would be called if these words were read by somebody who didn't know where they were coming from. That's where we're at right now. It's incredible.
During the long lane of the history yet to be written, America knows that this world of ours, ever growing smaller, must avoid becoming a community of dreadful fear and hate, and be instead a proud confederation of mutual trust and respect.
Tell me he's not frickin' Nostradamus. Tell me he's not Nostradamus. Down the long lane of the history yet to be written, America knows that this world of ours, ever growing smaller, must avoid becoming a community of dreadful fear and hate, and be instead a proud confederation of mutual trust and respect.
Such a confederation must be one of equals. The weakest must come to the conference table with the same confidence as do we, protected as we are by our moral, economic, and military strength. That table, though scarred by many past frustrations, cannot be abandoned for the certainty agony of disarmament of the battlefield. Disarmament with mutual honor and confidence is a continuing imperative. Together we must learn how to compose differences, not with arms, but with intellect and decent purpose.
Intellect and decent purpose. Wow, what an elitist prick. Am I right? Gosh. The notion that we have allowed ourselves to get to the point to where, 33% of this country would regard this rhetoric here as borderline intolerable. It's like opposite world. It's an unreality that this is happening. And that's why I continue to feel compelled to talk about it. Because the moderates of this country are having the same issue that they had all through the rest of our history, right? A lot of us want to just oh, it'll work itself out. I just don't need to get involved. When somebody's talking a bunch of shit, maybe they're being a racist around you or something, and you just kind of, oh, well, that's just the way they are, and I'm not going to say anything. When they're talking about the fake news media and how we need to put Democrats to the gallows, and even their own vice president, Mike Pence. It's time to say something. Fans of my channel over at the GENXENNIAL, I know GENXENNIAL Gaming doesn't hear a lot of this business, but I've been saying this for a long time. Police your own. It's time to police your own. And the most important people to start policing their own are the moderates in this country, who try and put their head in the sand, try and keep a low profile, and allow this to perpetuate within your circles. Okay? Police your own.
Because this need is so sharp and apparent, I confess that I lay down my official responsibilities in this field with a definite sense of disappointment. As one who has witnessed the horror and the lingering sadness of war, as one who knows that another war could utterly destroy this civilization, which has been so slowly and painfully built over thousands of years, I wish I could say tonight that a lasting peace is in sight. Happily, I can say that war has been avoided. Steady progress toward our ultimate goal has been made, but so much remains to be done. As a private citizen, I shall never cease to do what little I can to help the world advance along that road. So in this, my last good night to you as your president, I thank you for the many opportunities you have given me for public service in war and in peace. I trust in that service, you find some things worthy. As for the rest of it, I know you will find ways to improve performance in the future. You and I, my fellow citizens, need to be strong in our faith that all nations under God will reach the goal of peace with justice. May we be ever unswerving in devotion to principle, confident but humble with power, diligent in pursuit of the nation's great goals.
May we ever be unswerving in devotion to principle, confident but humble with power, diligent in pursuit of the nation's great goals. Confident but humble with power.
To all the peoples of the world, I once more give expression to America's prayerful and continuing aspiration. We pray that peoples of all faiths, all races, all nations may have their great human needs satisfied, that those now denied opportunity shall come to enjoy it to the full, that all who yearn for freedom may experience its spiritual blessings. Those who have freedom will understand also its heavy responsibility, that all who are insensitive to the needs of others will learn charity, and that the scourges of poverty, disease, and ignorance will be made disappear from the earth.
I like how he threw that last one in there. The scourges of poverty, disease, and ignorance will be made to disappear from the earth.
And that in the goodness of time, all peoples will come to live together in a peace guaranteed by the binding force of mutual respect and love. Now, on Friday noon, I am to become a private citizen. I am proud to do so. I look forward to it. Thank you, and good night.
Well, there it is, folks. There it is, the most prophetic speech in American history. I get chills. I get chills when I do something like this. Same thing happened with Washington. We are in a place that we don't belong. The politics of our nation are in the worst place we could be. And that's our fault. That's complicity. We're being complicit in in the exercising of our freedom to express ourselves and vote. The idea that somebody like Donald Trump could get 80 million votes or whatever he got, it's I can't even wrap my head around it. How a principled person, an intelligent person, can put everything that they know about those ideals aside with everything that we know about Donald Trump. Now, if you're somebody who believes that all that stuff is lies and that the man who literally shits on a golden toilet, literally owns a golden toilet that he shits on, right? He literally owns a golden toilet. It's the savior of the poor American working class man. A greater fiction couldn't. You can't even make that fiction because it's so unbelievable. But it happened. And I guess the best way to describe it is it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to come to the realization that that's possible. So, it's days like today we're going to remember what real leadership looks like, and what real rhetoric sounds like. Rhetoric is rhetoric, but that doesn't make it all bad. So with that said, we're going to dive into the Warzone for a little bit. Dive in for, let's see, 42 minutes. I turned a 15-minute speech into 42 minutes. Not too shabby for this ISDP. Thank you for hanging around with me. I hope you stick around for some Warzone. As I get this ball rolling here, there has been times in the past when I booted up Warzone, it dropped the stream. I don't anticipate that happening. This time. But you never know, so we'll see. Get the old battle.net launcher going. Dive in head first. Warzone is now playable. Great. All right, cross your fingers. Cross your fingers, everybody. You know what, we're just going to jump right into the Warzone window. And maybe that'll, maybe doing it this way will save the frames just a tiny bit. Because this will take a minute to get loaded with everything running the way it is. And I also have to turn my fan up, or else we could cook the GPU. Right? There we go. That part's done. All right, let's see if the boys are on. I am looking forward